right, here we go. Another true Brew Bobcast here at the end of Dayton Road at Cafe Dayton. It's early in the morning. What we drinking today, ladies?
I have a drip with a little pump of white chocolate, a little splash of half and half cream. Good to go.
We're drinking tea.
I'm drinking tea, yeah. That's usually my order.
Yours is usually my order. It's a classic.
Yeah.
So today we have Stephanie Hebert, child and family therapist, LPC and masters, and Miss Tessa Ozene.
Good job.
How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. She's also LPC, masters in child therapy, and we're gonna drink some tea and some coffee and have us a little podcast. Y'all up for it or what?
Yeah, let's do it. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. All right. So, hey, look. Crazy world right now, huh? Maybe let's start off, give us a brief intro of your practice and an idea of your clientele. What's the range, age, and all that good stuff? Steph, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So I've been in private practice for about 3 years now. I decided recently, about a year ago, to open my own private practice, Align Therapy and Wellness. My background has been in school counseling, and so I really enjoy working with children and adolescents at that age. Thank you. With that age, it's something I've always been passionate about, but being able to move from school counseling into private practice has been such a cool experience to be able to dive deeper into the concerns that we both were seeing as former school counselors. It's, you want to help everyone, but you only have so many hours in a day and so much time to be able to dedicate to that. So primarily my clientele is ages 4 and up. I'd say the bulk of my clients on average range between ages 6 and 24, which is very broad, but I find a big part of what I do is help with transitioning into middle school, transitioning into high school. The existential crisis that is, oh my gosh, I'm graduating from high school, what am I going to do next? Oh my gosh, I'm actually in college, what do I do now? Oh my goodness, I'm graduating college, I have no idea what to do from here. Helping them navigate maturity and all the pressures that are on our current preteens and teens and young adults. That's the bulk of the work that I do. And in conjunction with that, over time, I've really developed a deep love for working with parents and helping them understand and bridge the gap of the way that they were brought up or the way that they grew up, and their experience 20, 30 years ago is significantly different now. And helping them understand it to not only bring them closer to their kids, but also to help them manage expectations and create realistic expectations for today's young adults.
Perfect. So how about your practice, Tessa?
So it's really funny because Stephanie and I's journey has been almost aligned.
Yeah.
I was going to say similar.
Yeah,
but almost aligned. So we both finished in school counseling. And then, as she said it best, we have a love, or I had a love for working with children, but like she said, there's so many hours in a day and so little time that we had the opportunity to be able to help children grow in certain areas, or mental health areas. You know, we were able to help them grow, definitely in academics, but I think we also wanted to be able to reach them differently. Mm-hmm. So we both kind of transitioned from school counseling into private practice at similar times.
Yeah.
So I've been in private practice, trying to think how long, probably for a total of at least 4 years. So I did private practice while I was also in school counseling. I would see clients after dismissal, and then about a year ago, just like Stephanie, I made the transition to moving into full-time private practice, and I now have Strive Wellness, where I see the majority of my clients are also kids or children from ages 5, I see all the way through adulthood, but the bulk of my my clientele right now is children between the ages of 5 and I would say 18. Have quite a few adults, and I see a couple of couples, but my passion is children and parents. And I also developed a love for working with parents because our kids' worlds are basically evolved around our parents' lives and around the way our parents communicate, basically. So my love is to be able to help children communicate their feelings and help parents understand those feelings and correlate that, because it's, like Stephanie said, it's very different now. The exposure that our children see and experience now is much different than when our parents grew up or we grew up. So that's me and my story.
Yeah.
This guy was wearing me out coming here this morning. So y'all both mentioned the love for parents. So what I'm picking up on that, and my experience as well, parents just want to be better parents. They want to be coached. There's no handbook in parenting. Legacy parenting, all those things come into place. I'm sure y'all run into those roadblocks. So elaborate on that. So parent, what is, when y'all say your relationship with parents, are they in therapy or are you coaching them along with the child?
You want to take that one first?
Sure. Whenever I take on a client, it's an agreement that the parents are involved. So it's that's mandatory. Whenever
Is that a law?
Not necessarily.
I mean, for a child, just is there like a like a doctor-patient deal, or is that even with the child? So they have rights as well.
Yes, they do have rights as well. So
I want to come back to your answer, but I need to know
brought
that.
up.
What are the rights?
So recently I was able to present on that topic at UL for our up-and-coming therapists, and it was a really helpful one because they're working, our local university offers free counseling through their clinic for, it's the UL CCPD. It's off campus, right near Cajun Field on Congress, and they offer, and so it's their interns who are about to graduate and really want to work with either children, teenagers, young adults, and into adulthood. But something that's our new therapists are getting hung up on is how can I explain confidentiality in a way that comes across as respectful, but also establishing some good boundaries, but also to where the parents aren't going to feel like I'm hiding things from them, or setting good expectations like, I'm sorry, I won't share every single detail of what we do in our sessions. So some way that I explain it is, thank you guys so much for reaching out. I want to start off by saying I'm so glad to be working with you guys, but I want to explain what that's going to look like. What it means is you are signing your child, your minor, up for therapy. What that means is that they are the patient, they are the client, they are the primary focus. The concerns are related to what they're struggling with and everything around that.
And this is meeting one.
Yeah, meeting one, intake, we get it out the way because I want those boundaries to be explicitly clear.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much more smooth after that if we get those conversations out the way and we say, number one, no matter what the age is of your child, what's said in our office stays in our office. And the exceptions to confidentiality are if your child wants to hurt themselves, whether they have a plan or they just have some passive suicidal ideations, I'm letting you know as a parent. Number two is if they have intents or plans that they are thinking about hurting someone else on a very serious level. And as a therapist, you have to use some type of discretion and understand your client because there's a big difference between I can't stand my parents versus like I actively want to hurt someone. The other one is abuse or neglect. That one does pop up in working with children. Sometimes because we have sexual abuse, we have neglect in the homes. There are times where we, both as school counselors and as therapists, we are mandated reporters. If there are some themes of things popping up or a child discloses that there's some abuse or neglect, we file DCFS reports.
Do y'all go through social services?
We do, yes.
Directly.
And it's, y'all obligated to.
We are, absolutely, ethically and
By
legally.
law, yeah.
Absolutely. And so I disclose all that to the parents, and believe it or not, they're actually at ease when you disclose that, because they entrust that we know as therapists, when does it need to leave the four walls of that room, that space. Another one in working with teenagers that we find pops up sometimes is self-harm and eating disorders. That's very common in that teenage and young adult age range.
You let the parent know that, you're gonna let them know that.
Yeah, so this is,
that's a slippery slope.
it is.
And then a few things that I've seen in my practice too have been like drug abuse among teenagers.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, don't you lose your patient when you tell the parent, hey, look, they're doing heavy drugs, and they're like, all right, I'm not telling that chick
Actually,
anymore.
you'd be surprised.
And I'm usually very strategic about how I do it. So I'll tell the client, like, I've had a few teenagers that have struggled with that, and I'd ask them at the forefront, like, have you told mom or dad this? Like, does your parents know that this is a practice? And when they tell me no, we talk about, so why do we feel the need to do this, and why do we feel like it's something that we need to hide from our parents? And then when we start exploring that, we talk about how much we trust our parents and if we don't trust our parents. But then we get to the point of, I think it's very important that you have this conversation with your parents. I'm going to sit in with you. But it's very important that you talk to your parents about it. That way it doesn't make them feel that I'm tattling on them.
Yeah.
You know, it's worked in the past.
You confront it with them.
So I'll sit in with them. I've done it in the past.
I've had similar experiences. So the way that I say, so I handle all that with the parents on the front end, and I say, however, my job is not an investigator into your child's life and to report back all the little bad things they're doing. There is a very big difference between developmentally appropriate behavior, i.e., a teenager drinking at a homecoming party.
Yeah.
Is it illegal? Yes. Is it developmentally appropriate for a high schooler to be drinking? Maybe. Vaping. But there is a very big difference, and that's where our judgment comes in as therapists to distinguish what is developmentally appropriate versus what is potentially addictive behaviors or reckless behaviors. So there's a big difference between someone getting drunk at maybe a homecoming after party versus someone blacking out multiple times a month at every party and then maybe having reckless behaviors such as like having multiple sexual partners, etc. And so whenever I have the very first session with the teenager, I actually lay all this out the exact same way so that everybody feels like I'm on the same page. And I say, if there's ever a time where my flags are going off that this is something that your parent needs to be made aware of, my promise to you is that I'm giving you a heads up first, out of respect. You may not like it, you may not agree with me, you may hate me, and that's okay. But I'm giving you the benefit of knowing a heads up, and then I will give you this much autonomy, and you can tell me, do you want to be in the room when we have this conversation?
Yeah.
Or 8 times out of 10, they're like, no, I'm going to wait in the car. Because they know on the front end. I told her, I was cutting again. I told her I was cutting again. I've been in recovery from self-harm for months now. I know if I tell Miss Steph, she's going to tell my mom, and we have to re-implement our safety plan again. But they know that. And so then I give them that choice to be in the room with us or if they don't want to. And sometimes it kind of depends on the rapport. If they don't trust me yet, which is fair, if they don't trust therapy yet, they want to stay in the room because they want to kind of vet, make sure I'm not oversharing. And then when I just
they do that.
And they just want to listen. And I explain it just exactly what I need to say. I don't say, we were talking about all these things. And so that actually does help. I've had clients that have ended up needing to go inpatient, and it was very difficult conversations. But believe it or not, they don't run away and say, I'm never coming back to therapy again. They respect that someone cared enough to make that difficult call.
Yeah, and it's for this, and they start to understand it's for their safety.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's moonwalk back a second. I feel like we jumped a little bit ahead. Ideally, when's the best time to get a child into your office?
I think it depends on the situation and the
Well, let me say this before you answer that. it feels like they look for y'all after something's broken. Okay? I mean, and I don't know, ideally, should somebody, when they start, if a parent starts feeling a little bit out of control, they see some behavioral issues they don't understand or whatever, wouldn't it be better to get them to y'all in front of them, because you're not just counseling the child, you're really counseling the family.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like y'all getting some issues that could have been avoided had they been there 3 years before. How accurate is that?
I think that's pretty accurate,
Yeah.
depending on how far they get. But that's a good point. To ahead of time, they may feel like someone is hearing them. Because sometimes whenever with our parents feel like we can't get through to them. I'm not sure. I'm not understanding what's going on with my child right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not able to relate to my child right now. They're not opening up to me. So I want to have the ability to have someone that they can talk to and share with, so that I can learn what I need to do to start communicating better with my 14-year-old or my 5-year-old.
Right.
So that makes a good point. So
Seems like pre-puberty is better, because once puberty hits, all the wheels are off, right?
Sometimes, yeah, and I think what we're learning in working, the more that we're understanding mental health in children and adolescents, a lot of the research and a lot of the things that we were taught were so geared towards adults, and now people are saying, oh wait, children can have mental health issues. Children can actually have mental health diagnoses, but what's interesting is that different diagnoses can have different onset ages. So you can see, let's say ADHD is, very young, very early, and so you can start the interventions very early. Same thing with autism spectrum disorder. You can see those traits pop up very early, whereas some of these struggles may not pop up till maybe pre-adolescence, when those hormones kind of activate some of those things going on. So like oppositional defiant disorder, or we might see a conduct disorder. Depression can kind of happen whenever. But so I think that kind of, to answer your question, it does depend on, is there a family history? That's where we get into some really cool stuff of, if you and your spouse know that there's a family history of some type of mental health struggles, there is a very strong chance that your children, especially if you have multiple children, you can kind of just pick, at least one of them may struggle at some point. And so if you want to be proactive, you can even start with bibliotherapy, which is just finding children's books at home to teach them about emotions, teach them about naming those feelings, and then you kind of pair it with some coping skills, like when I feel this, I want to do this. When I feel that, I want to do that. And then, and so you can kind of front load it, like you're saying, like be proactive on the front end. And so, yeah, there is a lot of parents sometimes whenever they get to therapy, they feel so defeated or guilty, like, oh my gosh, I should have brought them in sooner. Like, I can't believe I let it get this bad. Or I feel like I messed them up. These parents have so much well intentions.
Yeah.
And
Who makes
so
the call, the mom or the dad?
it really depends on those dynamics.
What's the
depend.
percentage, you think? I'm guessing the mom.
Well,
I
I don't
have
know.
quite a few dads that have
Really?
reached out
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
Like 40%?
It depends. Well, and also I'll say, at least on my end, what I see is the parent who attends the intake is not always the only parent who's involved. It's some parents work out of town. Some parents are physicians, or some of them are surgeons, or they just have the type of job, they're laborers, and they couldn't leave work to come to this intake, but they are 100% on board. Sometimes they're the ones whoever attends the intake that's not automatically my first assumption, like, oh, that's the most involved parent or the only parent that's on it.
Whoever reaches out to
Yeah. And I see a lot of very involved dads and very moms, and a lot of I see about split. Yeah.
And I think it also depends on the population of who we see, because I have quite a few clients whose both parents are very, very involved, and then I have a few clients who who dad is more involved. And then I have some clients who mom is more involved.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just depends on the situation. I think it depends on work schedules.
Absolutely.
Fortunately and unfortunately,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Logistics.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so what are y'all seeing mostly? Is anxiety still way at the top? And so let y'all both talk a little bit. Tessa, maybe you first this time. Anxiety used to get a bad label back in the day. If somebody says you're depressed or you have anxiety, it was, toughen up, buttercup, or whatever, what the hell. But it's, I've seen it with my children. It's like, it's real, and it's sometimes undetectable. I mean, they can wear a really strong face, and they are just boiling inside. So, tell us the range, Tessa. What do you describe the best you can in adolescent anxiety?
So, really and truly, anxiety starts out, it could show up or present itself very, very early on. The bulk of my clients who are between 5 and 10 exhibit symptoms of anxiety just through their behaviors. It doesn't look like anxiety, it's the behaviors look like disruptive behaviors, they look like irritable behaviors.
Tummy aches, headaches.
Physical behavior or physical.
It's just exhausting, right?
Yeah.
It's coming out in some form.
They have no way of labeling it yet.
No, they don't, and mom and dad as well. Like they're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't, they're having these angry outbursts at school. They're having these angry outbursts at home.
And they're being disciplined on the action and not finding out the core reason.
Yep.
Exactly. And then what happens often, I've seen a lot in the school system when I worked in the school system. Early on, they get labeled as oppositional defiant disorder when it was really anxiety. But they were labeled as oppositional defiant disorder because those disruptive behaviors exhibited themselves before really investigating where those behaviors came from. And then it happens often at the preteen, teenage level for sure. And then at that point, sometimes those diagnoses of ODD leads to, in the public school system, like special ed evaluations when that wasn't the intentions in the very beginning, or that wasn't the case in the very beginning, but then they're labeled as SPED or labeled as disruptive, and then they get, a bad reputation after that. But in the very beginning, it was really and truly anxiety, and I don't know how to express my feelings because this school environment looks very different than my home environment. So I think it starts early on, but it really starts to show itself or present itself in behaviors then and then much more later on.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
You agree with all that?
I really do, yeah. There's a big difference of that. We talked about family inherited mental health struggles, so anxiety can absolutely be inherited. And so if you and or your spouse or even grandparents or aunts or uncles, if it's in the family tree, it's going to produce a fruit. And so it's very wise. It's very wise to be on the lookout for it and try to be proactive and kind of teach our kids. But on average, usually anxiety can be diagnosed starting around between 6 and 8. And so we can actually label it and start assessing for it. But it's not just hereditary. So let's say no one in the family technically would meet full criteria for anxiety. Maybe there was a precipitating event. So for example, let's say I'm in 2nd grade and a child brings a gun to school.
Okay.
And so I had no anxiety leading up to this big event, but this kid brought a gun, nothing happened, but now the school really was reactive to that, and now we've got all these safety measures in place. Now we've got metal detectors at the school. My parents and their friends are talking about it. How would that make me feel as a second grader when I go back to school the next day or the next week? I am terrified, I am scared. And something that I love to do with those littles is help them distinguish the difference between anxiety and fear and feeling afraid, because a fear is an imminent threat that we can see. Like there's a threat, and so I feel afraid of that snake that's crawling on the ground.
Or a person or whatever.
Exactly, and a lot of
An object.
times it is validated because the likelihood of that fear being a threat to us is very strong. And so I'm afraid of that snake. I'm afraid that because snakes can bite us and we could have poison or whatever. Anxiety, and I love like Inside Out 2, I quote that one all the
use it all
time.
the time.
I love Inside Out 2. Anxiety's the new character on the scene, and it really does, in my opinion, does a beautiful job of explaining. Anxiety is so well intentioned. Anxiety wants us to be the best version of ourselves. Like we talk about Lowe's, never stop improving. That's so wonderful that we're not complacent, we're not settling with ourselves, but anxiety kicks it into high gear all the time and says, but we need to worry about what could happen. And it comes up with as many different possibilities of what could happen in the future, and our brain sees that as it could happen, so I need a contingency plan for every single possible situation. And then that's just
hyper focus on that.
Exactly. And so anxiety robs us of the ability to be present.
And
You know,
show
I
discretion.
always go back to Native Americans.
Ooh, how so?
Track with me.
I like that.
Okay, so
Interesting.
and it's really wasn't that long ago. I mean, we act like it is, but you know, the school system and all that is what, 100, 110 years old, 20 maybe?
Yeah.
But, you know, I go back to this interview I heard, like somebody asked this guy, I'm jacking up who it is, but if somebody from our past, from 1,000 years ago flew in, had a time machine and came here, what would stand out to them besides the planes and trains and all the technology? And he said what would stand out to this Native American from 1,000 years ago is he would ask, why do you take your child and stick them in with someone their exact age and they get educated for 20 years together? You know, when what they did, you talk about fear or whatever, they might have had an aunt, an uncle, a mama with a couple of them. Okay, this is a snake, don't eat this, do this. And it was very fluid, the whole take a village thing, but it was like on the grassroots. And that sticks in my mind. And when I think about y'all challenges and things like that, I just think about, I was looking at my children when they were growing up, and it was just like, you know, we're really fighting against nature when it comes to a lot of these things that create this anxiety. Y'all ever studied Gabor Mate? Okay, check him out. I'll leave you his name. He's a brilliant guy. And I've listened to him on several podcasts or whatever. He talks real slow and it's cool. Check him out.
Vibey.
But, you know, he says everything fundamentally, any mental health, any issues, every one of them is based on grief and trauma. Excuse me, not grief, but trauma.
Well,
Everything.
And grief and trauma are interrelated. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be someone that has died. It's just the loss of.
But his point is everybody is dealing with trauma, and you talk about like when you were saying, let's look at the family. I think of a comment that Dr. Amate said. He said, like the Native American, everybody says, well, they're predisposed to alcoholism. You know, they just if they start drinking, it's it. And he says, or it could have been a bunch of Anglos came in and wiped out 90% of them and then drug them to a reservation somewhere, and now they have this systemic generational trauma.
Absolutely.
And it's just, there's no unraveling it.
Yeah.
You know, how do you decode that? And so that's a big example, but
That's a
you
really
can
good
micro that down to a family. Am I way off base?
No, you're absolutely right. There's a beautiful book that's
Very
one of the
sad.
best. That's called It Didn't Start With You.
Right.
And it's a wonderful book about generational trauma and understanding, helping us to understand why we operate the way we do as an individual. That is both inherited, learned. We're just doing the best we can. And I think something that inspires me as a modern day parent, you know, having kids myself, something that inspires me as a modern day parent is seeing so many people around the same age as me choosing to break generational trauma, but we can't break it without acknowledging it first, and seeing the struggles that the people that came before us endured so that we can live the life that we lived, and also understanding none of our lives were perfect, and we're not pointing blame at anyone at all, but it shows the struggles that each generation had to endure or chose to work through to better the future generations. Like how your kids have grown up may have been significantly different and maybe better.
Doesn't that fall under the legacy parenting tent? I mean, don't we all naturally parent like our parents parented us? And so that's legacy parenting. So the first thing is to diagnose how bad was my parents.
Yeah.
And I'm not blaming them.
Yeah.
And we don't think
because
that
they're a product of how they were raised. And now we're a
Absolutely.
product, we're indoctrinated
Yeah.
and religions and this and that and all that stuff. But we're really, you know, the worst thing is you sound like your mama. And that's triggering.
How
That's
often we say that?
Yeah, so true.
How often we do that?
But we internally assess and evaluate, and that's our very first examples of parenting, is our own parents.
Yeah.
And so when we become parents ourselves, we go back to where it all started, and we assess and judge and evaluate, basically like Piccadilly. Which things did my parents do for me that I feel really helped me or really instilled some good things in me, or it was some bad stuff, but it made me a stronger person. I want to do that for my kids. And then what do I feel like, my parents kind of missed the mark on that, or they didn't do enough of this, or I wish they wouldn't have done as much of that, and so now I want to do it a little bit differently. And so you kind of get to make that blend.
Have with our parents.
I feel like that's where we have the opportunity.
But I can tell y'all, being older than y'all, I remember just disagreeing with my dad, and the older I got, the more wiser he got.
Yeah, it all comes.
When I was
full circle.
25, when I thought if I would tell a therapist what I think my dad screwed up with me, and when I'm 45, I'm like, he was exactly right. It was me. And so you're dealing with human beings, and so wow. All right, so the kid gets to you, trying to unpack it, unravel it, untangle it, and y'all are giving them skills to cope with what y'all diagnose or what y'all perceive their situation is, their struggles. And you're trying to give them little deals in here and here and here. So basically y'all trying to repair something that's broken. In y'all opinion, what can we do as a society to prevent that from happening? This is the trick I found. My twins are 20, just turned 27, so and I have one 24, so I'm 15 years ahead of y'all. Here's the problem. They're facing new things that, for centuries, we can parent our kids because, hey, you know what? The sheep have to go in this corral because those wolves are going to get them, and you're going to have to do this and that. You know what? Their great-great-grandkids are going to be doing all of that. We're going to follow the buffalo. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You can predict what the life of your grandchild or child is going to be. I don't know about y'all. You can't predict. I mean, it's changing that fast. So is that the root of some of this anxiety as well?
It's a lot of exposure.
Yeah, but I
What
also
did you call
A
it?
lot of exposure.
Exposed.
exposure. Yeah.
Are they overexposed to?
They are extremely. I don't know if overexposure is a term. I'm gonna just say a lot more exposed than we have been used to.
But I also think parents are a lot more exposed now to potential dangers, which is causing a lot of anxiety in parents, which is then learned into their child. So, for example, we have social media, which is supposed to be a way to connect with people and be able to bring us together. But unfortunately, sometimes social media spreads so much fear of be careful on the lookout for this, creepy person that's in a van, or listen to what happened to me at Walmart this past weekend, or the dangers of sharks being in the beach, and so now we don't need to get in the water and the beaches anymore, or listen to all the social media.
No social media, they would have no idea. They would be shooting flares all day.
We would still be cautious as parents about protecting our kids, but I feel like today's modern day parents I love to use this analogy. We have little fires everywhere. Like, imagine this entire room, the whole baseboards had little bitty fires. The modern day parent right now is faced with, they need to do good in school, but they also need to be well-rounded. They also need to be outside and have, some type of, athletic exercise. Just society,
Okay,
the pressures, just the society, and even outside of media, it's like, oh, what's your kid doing? And you do these things. Oh, I need to make sure they eat healthy, but I also don't want them to have any body dysmorphia or body shaming. Like, they have to diet and they need to stay hydrated, and then they also need to have some type of maybe spiritual connection, and then also need to make sure they have friends, but also need to make sure they're kind. And these fires,
safe foods and
right, and then you got vaccinations. Like, there's so many hot topics that parents feel like they not only need to be aware of, they feel like they have to research all of them to at least have a stance on something. And then that our kids feel that we are so wired and strung up on anxiousness of doing a good job as a parent, and they feel that.
And I think the difference is there's so much less engagement. Not just with each other, but also with our kids.
Yeah.
So one of the things that are a few topics that we discuss, or at least I've talked to my parents about, is like continuing and keeping that constant engagement with your kids, because that distracts you from media, that distracts them from the media, and then they crave that attention.
Yeah.
They look for that attention, and then just be authentic with your kids. Like, be honest. Don't want to look like the super parent in front of them. Like, if you are authentic and honest, they will recognize it and give it back to you as your child.
Yeah, something that's inspiring, that like when we're talking about those fires and like how do we try to figure out what to do with all that, is really just ask yourself this existential question at the end of your life, or when your kids are grown and on their own. Ask yourself that existential question. When your kids are out the house and grown, and if you can say, look, I was not a perfect parent, but I instilled these big three. Like, these three things were most important to me. And honestly, this is something that I've adopted from I highly respect Roy Pettifee, and I got this from him a long time ago. And honestly, I use it personally, and also use it in my practice too. But like, if you pick a big three, what would be the big three things that, even if I screwed up in every other way, but I did this, I feel like I can rest my head, like, at the rest of my life, and know my kids are okay. And everyone's is different. And so a lot of parents, they flip the question back to me, well, what's the three? I'm like, it's not for me to decide. You've got to decide what's most important.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second. And y'all segue beautifully. Kind of looks like we scripted it. We didn't. Okay, so y'all two have a chair with a microphone, and now you have 50 soon-to-be parents, pregnant wives. They might even have a 2-year-old.
You can talk to me.
There we go again.
Round two, you get a little more lax.
So what? Y'all can talk for days, but you can't. Say you only have 30 minutes. What's the best advice for parents? What's the best advice for parents today, or where do parents mess up the most? You can take on any of those questions like you want.
I mean, you touched on a lot of them.
Can I let me jump in. I'm gonna do this
Yeah,
from a parent
please jump in,
perspective,
because-
okay? Because I'm through it.
You're way more experienced than parent.
Well, the other thing is, my kids are finishing school and all right now, and I'll say I was involved with my kids. I would say pretty heavy compared to the regular person.
Supporter of the year.
I was supporter of the year, but coach soccer, coach football, did all of that stuff, ran around.
Earned your stripes.
Earned my stripes.
It's the best.
But just because I loved it, and I had it, it was very important to me and Dee Dee, to do that. But analyzing parents, and I'm not parent of the year by any means, but what I see is that a lot of parents have expectations of their children that are just unfair. Like, I tell young parents this, I said, write down 100 things that I can hand up to the universe and your children is gonna be. And if I get 100 back and it's got baseball player, cheerleader, this and this, they gotta focus values first. You just want a kind, cool, caring, empathetic human being.
Absolutely.
Whether they made an A in biology or a C, if they're a cool human being that can view the world that way, they're gonna be fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that we talk about, we talk about legacy parenting, and I just see a lot of parents on the sidelines, and they're screaming at their kid, and you're like, where is that anger coming from? Where is that emotion coming from the parent?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, and I'll throw it back to y'all, you have this life, and all you're trying to do is let this flower bloom as colorful and wide as it can be. However this flower is, they don't belong to us. They're not our possession. We're just giving them, we got 18 years for them to figure out who they are, not, hey, you're gonna be a better version of me.
Yeah, I love the flower analogy when it comes to that. You want to imagine that a seed has been planted and it's a wildflower. You have no idea what kind of flower is coming up. It is not your responsibility to make it a rose. It is not your responsibility to make it into a beautiful version of a sunflower better than you were the sunflower.
Yeah.
Your job is to have the conditions suitable for it to blossom into whatever it's supposed to be.
Correct.
And so,
and it can open and close whenever
absolutely,
it wants to.
yes,
Right.
and that goes back to what you were saying about what piece of advice would we give? I think one of them is to manage our expectations as parents. Not only is it going to make your child feel like there's less pressures on them, it's going to put a lot less pressure on you too. Like, you don't have to be the perfect parent, just like your child doesn't have to be the perfect child. And we're all human, and everybody's giving each other grace, but we all have a general vision of, we want people who will work hard, be nice to people, respect themselves and other people, and everything else comes with that. And so when you're instilling just like good character values, it's not a constant expectation like, oh, you need to be, let's say I wanted my child to be responsible. It is absolutely important, but every time they forget to be responsible, I'm not going to drill it in and say, you're supposed to be responsible, you're supposed to pick up your shoes every single day. I'm not finding that as opportunity to find every example where they don't do it. I just want them to get back on track more easily. This is the goal. This is the goal where we're headed.
And the goal is how we impact others. Like, when we leave this earth, that's what we leave.
Mm-hmm.
We leave pictures, we leave things, but really and truly what others feel is the way we make them feel. So that's part of the things that we're supposed to teach our children, is how to impact others, because that's the legacy that we're trying to build. Like, how much kindness can we contribute to this world, basically. So
Can I quote Mike Tyson?
Always.
please.
Did y'all ever think I was gonna quote Mike Tyson today?
Yeah.
Mike Tyson was asked.
The new parenting guru.
Okay, I'm a huge Mike Tyson fan as a human being. Where he came from, what he became, and where he is now. Someone asked Mike Tyson, what was his legacy gonna be? And of course, everybody assumes he's gonna talk about boxing and fighting. He says, nothing, the only thing that matters is what your children say about you.
I love that.
It's one of my favorite. I
I
love
love
Mike
that
Tyson.
too.
It's beautiful
Well,
because
it's kind of going off what you just said.
well, and think about it. These are the people that are around you the most, in theory. You know, because jobs come and go, coworkers come and go. Although we are at work a big bulk of our lives, the people we work around or the companies or whatever, our kids are with us 18 years or more.
Yeah.
And for them to have and they've seen you at your best and your worst.
Yeah. And they know you.
They know how bad it can get.
Yeah.
And
Look,
so if they can say something positive,
I gotta tell you, parenting's a contact sport as well. Because you're rolling up and you're checking out the other parents. You comparing your kids, you're seeing if we're asking how's the grades, how's this when there's comparison. And so there's a lot of dysfunction just in the school with parents together. I find it comical, but some people take it so serious. It's like, my children are a direct reflection of who I am, so I'm gonna make my kid look like this because
Absolutely.
that's gonna make me look like this.
absolutely.
And the wheels on the bus go round and round, and then y'all make a lot of money because they come to see y'all. So why don't they have more parenting seminars and get-togethers? Is it that parents think they don't need help?
I think sometimes we're prideful,
I agree.
and sometimes we think that our children can be fixed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's hard to look at ourselves.
Yeah, I see that a lot too. I see parents bringing their children, but
Yeah.
they could also benefit from therapy too. And it's like, they're so anxious and all the time. And so the parents like, I could probably use therapy too. And I just lean into that statement like, okay,
Yeah, but
so let's do it.
okay, we're being
Let's do it.
honest, it's true Brew Bobcast. Parents love to talk about another parent's not parenting right too.
Yeah. I mean,
Did you see what
even
you
therapists,
believe they had that child? Yeah.
even therapists need therapists.
Yeah,
I mean, we
do,
all absolutely can not just be better, but none of us are perfect. We fail all the time, and
Just like we all need a doctor.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It seems like going back to your question about the parenting, just either workshops or whatever. It's either I think I'm doing pretty good, so I don't need that extra help. That's for the parents who are really struggling. Maybe it's a pride thing. Sometimes it's I do better through experiences, and so I'm just gonna do this. Like for example, there was a group of parents who did a book study this summer over. We all read The Anxious Generation. It was a very hot book this year.
Yeah, it was.
Very hot book this year. I strongly recommend it. Not even just because it did touch on technology and how technology really has amplified anxiety in kids and young adults. That's a soapbox for a whole nother conversation, I'm sure. But what I also loved is about just developmentally helping understand kids and how parents need to be flex parents, meaning how you parent them at 5 can absolutely be different than how you're parenting them at 11. It's okay. You don't have to have it all, and maybe that's for the new parents' wisdom. You don't have to figure out how you're going to handle the cell phone conversation when they're a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Just take it in stride. Like, just dial in on what is my kid going through right now at this age, and how can I be the best parent for this age? Let's cross that bridge when we get there. Just let's focus on the moment and focus on where they're at right now. And then if we just be intentional each step of the way, believe it or not, it probably should all
Work out.
okay. Like,
Yeah.
just focus on what they're going through right now. Now, the struggle comes in when you've got kids that are multiple ages.
Yeah.
You know, I fight that all the time because I feel like I have to have 3 different personalities and be 3 types of parents, and that looks like I'm being unfair or biased or whatever, but it's because my kids are individuals.
Yeah.
And they deserve to have customized parenting. I mean, if the school system can do it, why can't we do it as parents? Like, it's an IEP plan for parents.
Yeah.
Like, if I had a do-over as a parent, my mindset when my kids were you and Matt's kids' age. How old's your first one?
He's 3.
Okay, you come. He's
Contact sport. She's in contact
the
sport.
train.
Yeah, we're in contact sport. We're talking
But
right
if
now.
I had a do-over, I remember my mindset, and Dee Dee's as well, was let's expose them to a bunch of things and then let them figure out where their interests lie.
Yeah.
And if I had to do it again, I wouldn't try to expose them to as much as I did. You know, glad I did. You know, when we built out here, I put a little chipping green in the bag. I had a basketball court. I had a little baseball diamond. I have a pond for fishing. All the things Bob liked.
This sounds so similar.
Oh yeah.
I can relate.
It's hitting home. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, they didn't want it to do with anything of it. Now, I was just sort of saying, hey, if y'all interested in any of that,
If you build it, they will come type of approach.
Dad's
Yeah.
gonna give it to
Well,
you. Mom and Dad's gonna
and
give it
then-
to you. Yeah.
If
then
you
you
build
know
it, they will
what?
come.
One of my sons did a perfect cartwheel for me one day. And I'm like, you want to go to gymnastics? Yeah, boom.
Loved it.
The other one, he was into games, like outside, like Survivor. He's 27, still puts the games on. So it's really not what we want. They're gonna find what they want to do, and so all the other things that we were throwing out there, I don't know. I don't beat myself up too bad, but I think sometimes parents try to shove them in something, and
I like the fact that you followed them though.
That's the make or break.
That's the make or break. So like, we gave them all of this, you know, but maybe they don't like that. So let me observe what you do like.
Pivot.
yeah.
Oh, you do like this, so let's follow that.
Yeah. Something
We don't
that
do
I
that
think-
One of the things we did, we dropped them up in Firelight because one of them wanted to be in a play. They wrote it out, all 3 of my kids. They all ended up in theater, and you know what? I asked them today, and they do well in school. I said, what's the most transferable I'm thinking math or English. They said, hands down, theater and speech and debate.
I've heard that from other theater kids
He
too.
said, you know, so if I would tell a new parent, I says, shove them in speech and debate or
Yep.
theater,
Yep.
even if they're a tree. If they can get up and talk in front of a,
They're a tree.
or if they sing it and on, you know what I'm talking about? If
So
they,
true.
As soon as
So
they
true.
get comfortable in that, because they were high up in school, my kids, and Everett, you have to perform,
Yeah.
you know?
One of my favorite workshops I used to do, and I still resurrect it here and there, and I find it comes up a lot when we're talking about anxiety. Anxiety kind of can deepen itself if we don't have that base level of self-esteem or confidence in ourselves. And one of my favorite things is get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so when people are like, how can I build confidence? I listen to a billion podcasts on this all the time. Like, how can I build confident kids? Because in my opinion, just speaking for myself, but if we can build confident kids, then they can take on whatever challenge they want, and that's fine. And so then as long as we got that, they can do something else. But one of the biggest consensus is confidence doesn't come from me telling you you're a good person, or me telling you I'm proud of you. Because parents say that a lot in intakes. They're like, I tell them I'm proud of them all the time. And I immediately email them the link to the podcast that I refer to a lot that's on intentional praise. And we're praising the process, not the product. And we're talking about the best way to build confidence is not by somebody else doing it for us. It's by exposing them to challenges, micro challenges. Don't throw them in the deep end day one, but expose them to a lot of different things. And if they don't want to, I think that becomes a big tough decision too. It's like, when do I pull them out? Do I let them quit? Like, no, you signed up for a season, finish it out. But then we also got like, it's okay to pivot. Like we don't want to stay in something just because we hate it.
You know, on that vein, I'm gonna go back to a comment you said. That's is if you're authentic and honest, then they're gonna. To me, if I would tell any parent, it would be that. And let me tell you why. I think when we talk about snowflakes and people who are just triggered and they can't handle it and anything, they refer that back. This is Bob's diagnosis, so y'all can slap me in the face. All right. but I think it's a product of parents and society lying to them. Let me explain. Okay. If I have a daughter and she wants to be a singer and she wants to sing on stage or whatever, I'm not picking on Emma because she has a pretty voice, but if all she wanted to do is be a singer, but she can't sing, she can't sing. I'm sorry, babe, you can't sing. Babe, we're gonna practice on something else. You have a great voice, you're not a lead singer, okay? All right, yes, your soccer team came out in 8th place. You came up, you know what I'm talking about? In other words, I think the anxiety comes because the children know they suck and the parents are telling them they're good. So now they can't trust the parent.
Yes.
Why is my parent lying to me?
Yes, that intentional
I'm
praise
looking in the mirror, I'm not beautiful. I'm looking in the mirror, I'm not built. I'm looking in the mirror, I'm short, I'm whatever, but my parent, because of their insecurities, they're lying to me.
It's distressing.
They know you're lying to them.
Yeah,
they
To me, that's what
parents don't want to feel uncomfortable by seeing their kids uncomfortable, and so they want to
and
take
that's
care
what
of that.
messes it up.
And so and that does make some sense. That does make some sense as far as going back to that intentional praise. If you lost your soccer game and you didn't score a single goal and at goalie you missed 3 and so you're kind of part of the reason, I'm not going to tell you good job.
Right.
Intentional praise is, hey, that was a tough game. And I know I can't imagine how it was being on the field for that. But I'm trying to think of like something here and you stuck it out. You handled it with grace. That's intentional praise. I'm telling you, you had every right to scream F you or whatever, and
but
you
you show great sportsmanship.
Yes.
You know what you need to
that's
do,
intentional.
but you didn't transfer it and like
right.
kick
It's
on
not.
the
It's not saying you did a good job. You did your best. Like we're kind of putting a little bit more grit behind
and
it.
instructing them to be a cool human being.
Yeah. Like what did I do a good job
And
of?
then after you say that, it's a good idea to say, how do you feel about it?
Totally.
Like how, so like,
Love that.
like I gave my honesty to you, so now you can be honest to me.
And then you
You
listen.
feel better.
Yeah.
They feel better about being honest.
Yeah, I think a lot, sometimes, especially the younger kids, they immediately look to their parents for like the validation and reassurance if they didn't do well. And it doesn't give children the opportunity to self-evaluate. And so if as soon as the game's over, you're giving me your post-game report, then I'm just gonna adopt that as fact and I'm not gonna evaluate it myself. If you come up to me and say, man, what a game, and wait it out, kind of let them cool off for a second, but maybe later in the day it's like, what's your thoughts on that game? Like, what are you thinking? And they might say something that totally surprises you. It's like, I just want to work on my passing, or I want to let them kind of evaluate. Then you can add your 2 cents in there too, and say, I totally see where you're coming from on that. Do you want to work on that on your own, or you want some help with that?
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
And as a parent, that's where we provide the support.
Yep, and the resources.
And the resources.
Yep.
90% showing up.
Yeah.
Just show up, be quiet. They're gonna get it to you, and you help them out.
Yeah.
The only time I stepped up to behave or to correct is if there was a bad behavior, like if somebody treated another individual or they did some bad sportsmanship or whatever. I had a quick conversation on that. I don't care what the score is.
And that was one of the
And
big
if you whipped up on somebody and you was a bad sport, that's what we talking about on the ride home. So.
Mm-hmm.
So it's complicated. Let's talk about, I think y'all probably have a range, and of course we're not pointing anybody out, but I'm sure y'all have clients that are very wealthy, very well off, come from a different socio status, all the way through the middle, all the way at the bottom. Is anxiety and all the things we've been talking about, is there different anxieties, or is it all the same through the economic range?
Do you want to go on that one first?
You have a lot of African American
Yeah.
clients, so
Yeah. I have a range. So we talk a lot about showing up for our kids. We talk a lot about, like, in this conversation, we have talked a lot about, like, being there at the sporting events or being present. In some communities, it's just not possible, you know? Mom and dad have to go to work, or mom has to go to work after her second job.
Yep.
But still, we still have well intentions for our kids, and we want our kids to be involved. So how do we work out that balance, you know, of still being present? So I think anxiety for sure looks different for different cultures, and looks different for different classes of income, and different backgrounds. So what we may tell one client may be completely different than another client, but it just all depends on resources, unmet need and met need, how we can meet needs.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I work with for sure on many of my clients with is making sure that, just like I talked about authenticity, make sure that we're being authentic with our kids, and they know that mom and dad are just not at work just to be at work. You know, like, mom and dad are at work because we have to be, because we want you to have every opportunity that we can provide for you. But also still maintain relationships as a parent with other parents where your children can feel supported by those parents. I know I use my husband's story a lot. So my husband, he went to STM. He lived on the north side of town. So his grandmother raised him. His grandmother had great relationships with his friends' parents. He was able to stay in all the sports that he wanted to. She made sure that. But also, it's because of the relationships she had with other people that allowed him to still be involved. And they were very positive people. So,
for having rides to different events and
having
things
rides,
like that.
engagements, spending the night,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
So he still had that supportive environment, even though grandma wasn't present, you know. So, and I mean, I'm kind of biased because he's my husband, but I feel like he's a great guy today, you know.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, ensuring that you have, it doesn't cost money to maintain relationships with other people, you know.
True.
So I think it's important to try to develop as many networking opportunities or just friendships to be able to provide certain opportunities for your kids, within reason, within feasibility.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I fully agree with it takes a village.
It takes a village.
And it could be
And you
in a
mentioned that
lower,
earlier.
yeah,
It takes a
and
village.
it could be in lower SES or even the higher SES. So I've noticed there are some similarities. It's not the same, but the similarities as far as when you go on both ends of the spectrum, the people who really struggle with poverty and the people that are very, very wealthy, it's both similar in the sense of parents are working a lot. So some of the parents who are very high esteemed lawyers
Yes.
they have hours where they have to provide and they have to make that money, but their hours do not allow them to be at their son's, their son's football game or their daughter's play or they can't make those things. And it is not a matter of, the middle class, it seems, has the best balance of being able to work and provide, but they also show up for their kids.
And they can.
But yes, but also I don't know that showing up is everything, because the parents who are not able to show up in those skewed areas, if you have authenticity and vulnerability and honesty, you are not only making a connection with your child, like it's not a fact that I don't want to be there, it's I want to be there, but I have to provide this, and so I'm making those sacrifices. Like people that work offshore, that's a beautiful example.
Yeah.
Dad,
And we see that a lot
choose,
here in this
absolutely.
area.
You know, a lot of especially young men, like teenage boys that I work with, they have come to respect their dads for the sacrifices they make, and they now are able to see it. But then the dads then sometimes feel, man, I miss like the years. I miss the good years. But man, had I not done this, I may have not been able to make the type of money to provide the lifestyle for my family. It's all about priorities and what you want to do. But if you sit down and have those conversations with your kids, like perfect example, being working moms, I can't make every field trip. I cannot make every thing in the middle of a 10 o'clock on a Thursday. I can't make all of them. I try to be intentional about prioritizing work-life balance. Luckily, my clients are very understanding, and I'm so appreciative of that there are times where family comes first, and they understand that, and if anything, they respect that I have that balance, because I'm trying to model, like, I'm not just a workaholic, but I'm not just a mom. And so there are some things that I don't make, and there are some things that I do. And I think as long as we have those conversations with our kids on the front end, like, hey, look, I can't make, like, my oldest had something, and I said, I'm really sorry, I can't make that. I said, I'm taking off these days, and then I'm also taking off for this too. And she was so gracious about it. She was like, no, I get it, Mom. She said, I'm just glad you're coming to whatever. Like, she prioritizes it too now.
Yeah, she understands.
And so we
because
kind
you're
of
being
work.
honest with her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I can't make everything, but I'm going to be there when it counts.
It's not the time you spend, it's how you spend your time.
For sure. And I think it instills good work values in them too.
Yeah.
Well, do y'all get a lot of issues or dysfunction with the two parents not getting along and it's not? So is that one of the main things there, is when you have two parents, they're not in sync, they're bitter, they all those divorced or not talking or mad or whatever, and the kids get thrown in between. Is that common?
Very, yeah.
And I think that adds to the anxiety.
I think at least a third of my clientele is from either blended family or separated families that sometimes struggle in co-parenting or just struggle in getting along. So sometimes the kids are in the middle and they feel it. Even though parents try not to show it, they feel it and they express it in session. And sometimes they're afraid to disclose it, how they feel to their parents, and without being in session, even though we try to encourage them. I know I try to encourage mine. I tell them, I'm like, I'm by law, I can't tell your mom all the things you say, but if you give me the permission that maybe we can have this discussion with mom, or you can have this discussion with mom or dad, I think it will make your world a little bit better. And sometimes they still fear because they still witness the struggles between mom and dad. And it's hard.
Well, y'all are clearly trained professionals, but y'all have to want to slap the shit out of somebody every now and then. Because, I mean, some of these decisions are like, what are you thinking? You're doing this in front of your child.
Yeah.
It's frustrating when, the misbelief that the child needs help, and so we're going to get them a therapist, but then we're not willing to do the work because we see that we're part of the problem. I think that we need to have some humility there. Like, if this is and that's why I love being a child and family therapist, because I work a lot with parents, just like Tessa too.
So much is learned though, right,
Yeah.
ladies? I mean, like,
Absolutely.
Racism's learned. Anger is most of the time learned. I mean, but so is empathy.
Yeah.
So is compassion. All those things are learned, and mostly from their parents, and for sure their close circle. So again, it goes back to, you want to dismiss the child and get the parents in there and teach them some emotional intelligence and slap them around a little bit. Huh?
A lot of times whenever I have like some parents who are conflicting or even like we're doing all this work, but then they keep going back into the same environment, and so the coping skills of whatever you're working, you can only, that's maybe one of the hardest parts for me about working with kids and teens, is we can do so much work and you can see that they are inherently such a great person, but they keep going back to this unhealthy environment, and so then you can try to address those, but you got to be very, very intentional and very careful, cautious how you handle it, because then it can come across as offensive.
Yeah.
Right? And and then
Yeah.
it can, so.
I'm gonna be
it's-
honest, the one that bothers me the most is, when someone is super, co,
Like codependent,
codependent.
like enmeshment.
Yeah, and like they just make excuses, and it's a tat baby, but whatever, and it's just that parent, the child can do no wrong, and it's just this codependence, which is probably them dealing with adult trauma from how they was raised. That's hard for me to watch, because again, it goes back to your point. They're not being truthful first to themselves and then the child. So now you have this duo of a parent and a codependent situation, and I don't even know how you begin to fix that.
And that's not how the world works. So it makes it even harder for everybody involved. But
So do y'all leave sad some days, or do y'all mostly feel like y'all fighting the good fight?
I'll pitch that to you first.
I think it depends. I forgot to mention, I work a lot with grief clients. I think, yes, definitely.
Oh,
knows.
get into that a little bit.
So,
It's a
This
local
is the-
nonprofit.
yeah, this is a quick plug, but a great plug.
Good,
It's
plug
the
it, yeah.
best, I think, if not the best resource that our community has to offer for grief clients. The Rescue Group is a nonprofit organization where when a child between the age of 1 and 18 dies in Acadiana, and that's not just in Lafayette, but in any of the surrounding Acadiana parishes, passes away, they take on the family. So in taking on the family is partially providing financial support for burial or funeral services, and then they provide support groups and counseling. So where we come in is they contract out with therapists in the community to provide counseling to their families. So I'm one of their therapists, but I see a lot of their children, so siblings of the deceased child, and then we have some therapists that work more with their parents, and then work with couples that have lost children. But those are the ones that anxiety does tug at your heart, and then blended families tug at your heart. But I think those are the ones that tug at your heart, for me at least, the most, because for several reasons.
So profound. The
Yeah.
death, right? It's mostly death, right?
It's all death.
Yeah.
It's all death.
Wow.
When a child dies.
Yeah, so I think one of the hardest parts is because I work with the kids. I've never lost a child, so I'll put that disclaimer out there, and I don't know what my reaction would be if I lost my own child. So that's hard in itself. I know we've all experienced grief in different ways, but sometimes we lose sight of our other children, and that can be hard for our kids because.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, so those are the things that really tug at at least at my heart the most. And it's not intentional. Like, we all intend to be great humans, and we all intend to be, and in that stage we intend to survive,
Yes.
because we're in survival mode. But our kids are also in survival mode, and they still need parents. So sometimes it's a difficult balance. So yeah, I just wanted to mention it's a great resource that we have, but also mention that that's a really big struggle, especially whenever grief happens in the family. Is everyone's experiencing it. It's important for our parents to display that grief in front of our kids. That's one of the things that I do talk to our parents about. But sometimes our own grief can interfere with the development of our other kids.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
And then that can lead to additional trauma in addition to the
Yeah.
grief that happened. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everybody's affected, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, tell us some good news. Like, how is just the therapy world or the profession, what have y'all learned here in the last few years not only with the generations coming up. Where are y'all winning? Where are y'all succeeding? What are y'all keeping some training wheels on for a little while and then letting them go and then they flying high?
I love this. I love to talk about the good things that we're seeing. There's a lot of good things that I'm seeing, that we're seeing in our field. Number one is the amount of acceptance that's coming around the mental health field altogether. There's a lot less shame in going to therapy than ever before, and I love to see it. I love to hear it. It's almost like a cute thing, like, oh, I got a therapist. Everybody's got a therapist now. But I love that. That means more people are getting resources and getting help, whether it's small things that you feel like are big things, but you're able to get like some good perspective on it, and you're able to, navigate it out and make some sense of what's going on. It can be really big things and heavy things, but it can just be, I have a couple of clients who've actually started recently who, they're just in their senior year of high school, and their parents thought it would be a good idea to have a good foundation to build up those skills to get them ready to go to college and be on their own. I love that. I love that parents are being proactive now, and they're not waiting until somebody else is telling them their kid needs therapy. I love that. I love to help people in those types of ways. I'm also seeing some positive things in our field of parents are doing good work. Parents are doing a great job. I had an intake this past week, and she said something to the effect of, I know that I'm not the perfect parent, and I know that we're close, but it's okay for me to swallow my pride and say it's okay if you want to talk to somebody else about that, and trust a trained professional. I love that our parents, even though they may have not been encouraged to go to therapy when they were that age, they are absolutely having the humility and the knowledge that it's okay that my kid's in therapy. That doesn't mean I'm a bad parent. If anything, it makes me a better parent. And it makes me, that I see what my kid's going through and I want to give him some help. I love to see that. Another thing that I'm loving to see, I love this new generation. I know sometimes they get a bad rap, and I know they're always on their phones, and I know that a lot of them are just scared to make a phone call now. That's a big one. We're going to keep working on that with them. We love, a big one. We know that they have some struggles. They have some social anxiety, but maybe some of that was some parenting faults. Like the parents made too many phone calls on their behalf. Let them do a little bit more. But I love this new generation. I love that they are connected. They are advocates. For minority groups, for our LGBTQ,
on with that train, girl.
I think social media does get a bad rap, but I also feel like social media gives knowledge and advocacy and community in ways that this generation, I go back all the way to Woodstock. We had, Woodstock, we had, the Make Love Not War movements. We had so many different generational times where people were advocating and standing, at the state capitol. But now we're seeing kids as young as like 10, 11, and 12 at, PFLAG here in Lafayette. Like we're seeing younger generations be more aware of what our societal struggles are and want to be the change.
Than we did. I think they have a better filter.
They're more mindful.
Filter out all this and make a better decision. I think they're making less emotional decisions than we do. I think they see our generation making these emotional responses to the television and everything else, and they like, is that necessary?
What does that anger do for me? If anything, I'm going to channel it into something productive. I'm going to go vote. But the anger really just turns us against each other, and that's not what we want.
I see it shifting. I'll say this, and Roy Pettifeast was on my show, and my kids gave me permission, but all three of my kids went to therapy at a young age, and they just stuck with it, and I loved it, and I wasn't, I didn't think of myself as, I'm like you just said, I think it's, hey, if I'm going to get a pickleball coach, or a theater coach, or a gymnastics
coach,
how about a therapist and a parenting something? And so, there's no shame in that. It used to be taboo. It used to be shameful. But for me, it's if you're going to invest in your kid,
it's the best investment you can make.
Take that hitting coach money and give it to one of y'all and help them become that better human being. I feel like we over talking you.
No. I mean, as y'all are talking, it's exactly what's going on in my head. But yeah, I've seen it too. But you made a good point earlier, Bob. You said, like, a lot of us as parents are more cognizant or aware of the just oppression that we've experienced or that generations have experienced before us. I love that our parents recognize that.
Yeah.
So the fact that our parents recognize that we have many cultures and generations before us, and us now have been victims of various forms of oppression, not just one form or another, but various forms of oppression, that maybe this does exist, and let me help myself, and then let me help my child recognize that these behaviors are from generational trauma, generational oppression that have existed for years, but let me try to undo that. Let me try to help them, because part of undoing is helping identify. So when we identify the things that we struggle with, it's like, oh, well, I'm recognizing it now. So like,
And they're healing.
Yeah, and
They heal themselves. I mean, there's no age.
Better, not bitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Better, not bitter. I love that.
Better, not bitter.
Better, not bitter. Just getting my alerts. My little alerts.
Well, we could talk for a long time. Will y'all come back on the show?
Absolutely. This was
Hey,
amazing.
so, plug your business.
Yeah, so again, I'm in private practice here in Lafayette. My office is on Collie Saloon, kind of close by the airport. It's called Align Therapy and Wellness. I am accepting new clients right now. I am at this time private pay only, not doing any insurance as of right now. That's a whole nother conversation we can have. But it's me and one other therapist in the same building. We love to work with kids, teens, young adults.
They're amazing, by the way. I know both of them personally.
Yeah, thank you. And so, that's my little spiel. Align Therapy and Wellness. You can check it out. Have a website. Psych Today is also really great. You can check all that out.
Tell them the website and everything.
It's like a long thing because it's general. You have the same thing. But if you Google my name, Stephanie Hebert LPC, my website's the first thing that pops up. So
okay.
yeah, and Tessa.
Yes.
So I have Strive Wellness. My practice is Strive Wellness and Consulting. I'm on Pinhook, not far from Stephanie, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So 1405 Pinhook. If you're familiar with the area, right across from Edie's, the best breakfast in town.
Oh, yeah.
And I see kids. I also have 2 interns who also see a plethora or different age groups. I'm the one that sees the youngest, so I see 5 on up. And I do take insurance. I take Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, UMR, Cigna, and Aetna are the different ones that I take now. And then I do take private pay as well. And then my interns are at a reduced rate, so they are phenomenal. Several or a couple of both of them, they do sit on my sessions, and we tag team sometimes. So that's kind of what we do.
And your grief group.
Oh, I'm lost for words right now. The rescue group is the nonprofit organization that I work with or contract out with. Their services are completely free. They get their funding from our community.
We've done a fundraiser here at the cafe for them. One of the bake sales was for them.
Well, we need to do another.
And they have several events that come up throughout the year. But this next one that's coming up is the Rescue Fest, where each family honors their loved one, and they have a birthday party and celebrate their kids' birthdays. And we take sponsorships for that. So that's coming up in November. So please look them up. The Rescue, I think they're therescuegroup.com, RESCYOU group.com. Or just
that's cool.
Just Google rescue. That's a little bit. I think that's pretty much everything that I can think of. And
Thank you.
Well, thank y'all for coming by the cafe. And we can talk about that after the podcast. Maybe we can do some group Q&As for parents and roll it into the rest
And
of
there's
the group.
Stephanie's done quite a few before too, like workshops for parents. So.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
Well, stay in touch with the cafe because we got all these cool things that's going to happen. And
Thanks for inviting.
Yes, thank you for having us.
thank you. Follow us at Cafe Daytime LA. Bobcast rolling. We're now on Spotify as well as YouTube. That's where you're gonna find us here. And a lot of good events, cool events coming up. The cafe is also a rental space, so anybody wants a really, really cool space to have a birthday party, which we won last week. And family reunions or weddings or whatever, showers or whatever, it's awesome place to come by. So let's do that. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we're gonna have these ladies back at another time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.